Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video on the Tool Teardown channel. A bit of a special moment for the channel. I realized the other day we've surpassed 1,000 subscribers. Whoop whoop! So I can't believe that 1,000 of you, or it's more than 1,000 now, of you decide to stick around and watch my videos on a more regular basis, which is great. To celebrate this momentous achievement, well, in YouTube terms it's a joke, but you know, everybody has to start somewhere. We'll do a giveaway, so stick around until the end of the video to find out what we're giving away. Let's get straight into it. Somebody who watches the channel suggested in one of the comments on one of the other videos, I think it was the Parkside drill that we reviewed a while ago, have a look at the Performance series of Parkside, because I did complain about the cheapness of the experience a little bit in that video. If you haven't seen it already, check it out up there. This is the Performance version, which is all black. So apparently this is better. So this is a 20 volt cordless angle grinder, a bare unit, as in there's no charger and battery in the box. And this is a brushless motor unit. But to put things into perspective a little bit, I thought, well, just have a look at another tool, which be another video, and we want to do something special because of this. So hold on. Whoa! Why not have a look at this as well at the same time? So this is, because you guys keep asking about it, I think somebody said, oh, do one of these. So there you have it. We'll do an Axxio teardown as well, which is the Einhell brushless angle grinder. So I thought, why not compare the two and see who builds the best sort of entry-level brushless 125mm angle grinder. Is it them or is it them? Stay tuned to find out more. Now this particular model, I think it at one point used to be the showroom model at my local Lidl, because it was the last one that was on the shelf and it was in this state with a missing piece of packaging, because the box sort of comes straight off. It looks very broken. So the other thing I did notice as well is that normally these boxes are sealed with some sort of like a cable tie arrangement at the top. This one wasn't, so we'll do open it up together. I did have a quick look inside it before to make sure there was actually an angle grinder in it and not a box of rocks. Or there is one in there, but it could well be that there are some bits missing that you might have when you get yours. So yeah, apologies for that. But I think I did this deliberately, because you could argue, oh, why don't you go to a different Lidl and buy another one, or buy them on Amazon or eBay or wherever where they sell them as well, you know, in a box that isn't broken open. I just thought I'll share the whole experience. You know, for me personally, I struggle a little bit with the concept of buying power tools at a grocery store. But apparently there's lots of them, all compatible with the same battery. And a lot of them come with a 5-year warranty, which is great. But then again, if you go back to Lidl, the store where you bought it from, and say it's broken, give me a new one, they won't have one there. So how's that work? They're going to send you one, or you get your money back and you buy one when it's back in stock in 12 months time? So yeah, for me, this 5 years is all well and good, but what does it mean practically? Do you get a new one? I don't know. I never had a problem with a Parkside tool, because I never really owned any Parkside tools. I mean, the green drill that I showed you in the previous video I've given away, so I couldn't tell you how that works. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you do have experience with these things going wrong and how that whole warranty system works. Yeah, I don't know. A little bit skeptical there, as you might have probably already sensed. But, you know, let me know down below if I'm all wrong and I'm an idiot. Anyway, enough with the waffle. Let's open this box, have a look inside, what's in the box, and then we'll grab the other one and do a sort of side-by-side comparison of the features. So you get this massive box, which this is what I got in my box. So in the lid there is the mandatory newspaper that comes with it. of that particular week of the year, and an angle grinder. Here it has some slots which are presumably for the battery and the charger, so you can have it all in one box. Personally, I'm not a fan of these boxes or suitcases or carrier devices, because having to dig them out of a box every time I want to use it is just an extra step that I don't want to take. So I have them hanging on the wall and I can just grab them when I need them, plug a battery in it, and off you go. So a very strong smell of plastics, chemicals, when you open this box for the first time, I must say. So that's a little bit of a, yeah, less cool experience personally, but I don't know, maybe I've got sensitive nose. I do have a battery actually, which obviously you have to buy separate because it's not included with a bare tool unit. So yeah, 20 volt battery, 4 amp hours. So what this really says, it's an 18 volt battery. This and the Einhell tool, which works on the Einhell 18 volt power exchange platform, they're exactly the same batteries. The 2 volts, they are one and the same thing. It's just a marketing blur, basically. So don't get hung up on that. Oh, the other one is only 18 volt. This is 20 volt, so the 20 volt must be better. No, if you measure the 18 volt when it's fully charged, it'll also show you 20 volts. So in that regard, oh dear. Nice. The sticker is already coming off. The nice thing is that it is fully charged, sort of, because the green LED is a little bit on the dim side compared to the other two. But yeah, they do give you a fully charged battery, which is a good thing, because my local Lidl, at the point I purchased the angle grinder, did have a shelf full of batteries, but 0 chargers. So I didn't really want to spend a lot of money online buying a charger third party just so I could have a charger with it. There you go. So yeah, you could just put, I guess, the charger, that's what that icon means. Talking about the suitcase, but I think we're going into the review a little bit, but because the Einhell doesn't come with a suitcase, or just comes in a cardboard box, which is fine with me. But yeah, if you do want the suitcase, it is quite nice. It has these sturdy latches, which the edges are a little bit stamped metal, so they are a little bit on the sharp side. They could do with a little lip maybe, so it's easier to get your bigger fingers in there, but you know, it's sort of alright. A sturdy-ish handle with the Parkside logo embedded in there. Parkside Performance, yeah. And then the other good thing about this versus the green one that we reviewed is this actually has a decent enough hinge. So this is a metal rod that goes into these 2-part hinges. So yeah, that's the box. We'll put that on one side for now. Right. Let's talk about the features of both these brushless, cordless 18/20 volt angle grinders are about. Well, both of them are of the budget entry level angle grinders that are part of a branded system that is, you know, not the stuff that you can get on AliExpress or Alibaba or wherever, that is a angle grinder with a battery that then doesn't fit on anything else. This is you know, a somewhat more developed system, as in the ecosystem that these are working on. Obviously Einhell has over 200 odd tools, which you've seen quite a few on the channel. Parkside apparently have a whole selection as well, which are occasionally available at your local Lidl. We're talking about the Parkside Brushless Performance Model PWSAP 20-LEC3. So yeah, it does say 20 volt, but as I already mentioned, these systems, they're both 18 volt, 20 volt nominal, but yeah, they're both identical, you know, same size, 4 amp hour batteries for them. So battery wise, pretty identical. Weight wise, pretty identical. I could put them on the scales in a bit, but battery wise, very similar. Then the Einhell briefly. So this is the Axxio model, the 125mm. This doesn't have any other type, name, number or whatever, so this is just called the Axxio. But yeah, as I said, there's 125mm disc capacity, so they're identical in that regards. Yeah, this one is rated to 8,500 RPM. This one can go up to 10,000 RPMs. Parkside, similar build, so the back half of the tool is obviously the plastic housing. The head is a die-cast aluminium housing painted in a sort of dark, smoked silver finish. The Einhell is slightly thinner on the grip, so if you have smaller hands this might be a little bit more comfortable to hold for you. So you have a sturdy grip on here, very sleek, slim body design. So if you want to go into tight spaces, definitely nice. And this has got the aluminium head just as much as the plastic housing in the back, so from that they're very identical. But yeah, this is definitely a little bit thicker. Weight wise, again, we'll put them on the scales, but I think the Parkside, what also doesn't help is obviously that it comes with the cutting disc, but weight wise feels a little bit heavier. So with the 4 amp hour battery, we're looking at 2.45 kilos, so just under 2.5 kilos for the Parkside. That's with the 4 amp hour battery. Without the battery, we're having 1.7 kilos. Now, for the purpose of comparability, the Einhell, also with a 4 amp hour battery, is 2.2 kilos. So the Einhell is 250 grams lighter compared to the Parkside. This is with the battery. Now, without the 4 amp hour battery, we're looking at 1.55 kilos. So the actual tool is also a lighter unit compared to the Parkside. For some giggles, 65 grams on the 4 amp hour battery from Einhell, 70. So we got 50 gram weight difference in the batteries and 150 grams weight difference in the actual tool itself. Right, then the next thing I think will be nice to look at is, as you can see already, the handles. So they're both overmolded with the TPE overmolding, the black stuff. So you have this sort of soft grip feel to it, which is nice. I personally, I don't know, this feels a little bit more hand-shaped, so this feels a little bit more, this is just almost like a straight, there's a little bit of a narrow bit here. Find it nicer when it's all the way around, so you have like, although there is this little gap here which you can feel with your hands, I think this over time will be more annoying, but they're very heavy on their branding. Everything has to say Parkside with them to make sure that you don't get confused with somebody else. Obviously these handles are adjustable, so they come threaded. And the good thing with the Parkside is this is a plus for the Parkside. The handle on the back here, so if you're doing, I don't know, into a tight area or whatever not, I don't know. So you have 3 options to put this handle in, so there's one there as well. So this side, that side, and up top. The other good thing is obviously you have the tool storage there, which is good, and then it's sort of sealed up, so no dust and metal grindings or whatever can go in there. And then I believe this handle, if I put it back on the tool, it does have sort of a anti-vibration feature, if I'm right, because these 2 halves of the handle are sort of spaced out with this TPE inner bit, although very stiff, so you don't really normally on an angle grinder bit, there is this little bit of flex which basically indicates that there's this anti-vibration feature in it. They made it look like it is, but I doubt it's physically actually working as an anti-vibration feature as such. Now looking at the Einhell, similar concept with the handle. There's a lot of paint in this hole, so for some reason this is a very tough hole to put it in, but yeah, similar concept, threaded end. The only thing is you can only put it on this side or that side, so this hasn't got the option up top, so that's a downside to the Einhell as such. Now this, as you can already see, there isn't really an anti-vibration sort of feature built in this handle, so this is just a solid plastic piece with a little bit of a TPE overmolding on there, the black stuff over the red handle basically. Now there's also got this little spanner device to undo the your locking ring for your grinder discs. I find this thing very awkward to use because, as you can probably already see, the guides for this metal piece, they are way down there, so you have to sort of hold it in the light to be able to hit the two locating pegs to be able to sort of point it in, and then there's nothing really covering up the gap, so garbage, dust, bits that you're grinding could all go in there, end up in there. That'll probably make it even more awkward to put it back in there when it's all filled out with rubbish and stuff. So I think this is definitely, from a handle design, the better one out of the two, also because it has an extra option there. So before we start going into the tool, the dust guard or spark guard, safety guard, yeah, it's just a simple rotating pin that has some max min. This thing is also very awkward, if I'm honest. I don't like using it. As you can probably already see, I use this thing a few times because, yeah, the disc actually hits the corners of this guard if you don't push it in fully, which at times, like I say, I'm not going to lie, sometimes it's very awkward to get it right because of the way that they designed this ring. So you have to sort of line up all three of the pegs to fit into the... Bloody hell. Sort of too complicated. So yeah, you can only get it on like that, and then you can sort of spin it in the direction that you want, and then you can obviously then secure it with this thing, which twists and turns as well, which is a bit awkward, as you can see. So this design, not so great. And then the other thing that I noticed is obviously this one is for grinding, not for cutting. So for cutting you have a different guard, which is similar to what this Parkside guard looks like. So basically this side is covered up also, so you only have half of your cutting disc exposed. So that basically is a better protection of sparks. Parkside came around and came with this neat solution where the front half of this cover is made out of a plastic piece, which you can sort of just slide off, and then you have the same solution for grinding. So you can grind without obviously having the guard in the way of your workpiece. I like this. This is nice. This is, you know, simple but sort of effective. You don't have to constantly swap out guards. I now make you buy a separate guard, which I'm trying to go on their service website to buy one so I could show it you, but they don't actually have one at the minute. So they tell you not to use it for this, but then they don't offer you this to do it safely. So why not throw both guards in the box and charge a $5 extra or $10 for the tool? Anyway, so talking about the price, I bought this at the Lidl. At the time it was obviously on offer because they only sell these tools when they're on offer. I think it was 70, the equivalent of 70 euros. This one, on a good day on Amazon, you pick them up for 80. They both obviously come without the batteries. So the battery at Lidl, they charge you for a 4 amp hour battery 25 euros. These, I bought this a long time ago as a twin pack for 50 quid. So let's call this 25 quid as well. So the batteries are the same. Parkside threw one in there. So this is a very thick one. So this is more for grinding, not so much for cutting. It's alright, you know, you get a free cutting disc with it, so when you buy the tool and you want to get going with it, you can sort of plug in the battery and make arcs and sparks. But with the Einhell one, you have to go to the shops and buy yourself cutting discs, sanding discs, grinding discs to put on there. I mean, pros and cons is one disc, one specific one, quite a thick one, as I said. If you do cutting, you have to buy them anyway. So, yeah, it's nice of them to throw it in, but these things are like, what, 150, 125 at your local hardware store? That's not going to break the bank. Talking about this particular area, as you can already see, the Parkside version comes with this quick release feature on their locking ring. So all we have to do to undo the cutting disc is press the big red button at the front here. And I have to use 2 hands for this, so bear me with the... there we go. It's locked in place, and then we can just... Hold on, there's a bit of play on this thing. And then we can just sort of turn it and pull this thing off. It's quite a... It's got a spring in it and all sorts. And then your cutting disc, obviously Parkside branded as well. Sorry, grinding disc. I keep calling it a cutting disc, but it's too thick for that. It's a grinding disc. Comes off. So yeah, this has the quick release feature included. Now I did mention that the newer models of these, they do actually come with that quick release as well. So you don't have this spanner included anymore, which you then don't need anymore. So I don't quite know why Parkside still includes this. So I guess if you want to go completely overboard, they still have the option to put it in there and give it that little bit of extra, you know, to undo or do it up, depending on how tight you did it up and how hot it all got and how tight it is to then be able to undo it. The Einhell, I'll put a picture of it here, locking pin is actually quite neat. It's got a sort of knurled edge and you just grab it and yeah, it just comes undone sort of like this. It just looks a little bit different. But yeah, so that's basically that. And then obviously you get the other half that sits on the inside of your disc. So this one will fit there as well, so you could use it on a different device if you wanted to, but yeah, very similar. Now while we got this off, so yeah, if you want to have it the other way, then there you go. Oh, it does go pretty much all the way. Quite a neat solution. The only thing is you can't obviously remove it fully, but then there is really no need because you have this bit that you can add on if you do cutting. I don't know how this will obviously last over lifetime when the pegs and stuff are a little bit sort of worn in on the aluminium housing there. But yeah, let me know what you think of this. You know, this is not a new device. They've been out for probably a while now, so if one of you has one of these, let us know how that sort of works over time. Right, I think I've sort of covered all the features on the outside. Switch wise, this feels actually quite sturdy. So you basically, you tilt it backwards where it says the 0, you slide it forwards, and then it sort of hooks in place with that little hook thingy, and there's a little hole there which it sort of grabs into. And then the back of the switch sort of stands up, proud. So if you touch that bit, it just instantly sort of kicks out and stops. Or at least we assume. We'll test that in a bit. Then Einhell, similar. The switch is a little bit more covered up by the housing. So if you do drop it by accident or something like that, this switch is sort of less likely to get the first grunt of the impact, whereas the Parkside one does stick out a little bit. Now that does make it, you know, when you're sort of grabbing it at a bit of an angle, you can still sort of, or when you're wearing thick gloves, you know, or have big fingers, that does make it very easy to use. With the Einhell one, because it's sort of covered in this aperture here, similar principle, you know, the off, and they just put the 1, so now it's on, now you can see the 0, now it's off sort of thing. Yeah, you have to push it down at the back, slide it forwards, and then it sort of clips in, and then you can see it while the back is standing up now. You press it and off you go. No, I did show it on the Parkside. You press this big red button to basically the spindle lock so that this stops turning. Whoa! That's the black button there that does the same here. So that stops it from turning so you can change your discs. Oops. Whey, that's it. So that's just a spring clip in a certain position, should come off. There we go. And what I mean with certain position is these teeth. They're all slightly different. I guess it's an extra safety precaution in case that clip is gone. It doesn't fall off instantly, causing lots of issues. Almost toolless to remove. All you need is a screwdriver. Getting it back on probably be a bastard, but yeah. So there we have it. So you can sort of see in this image the difference in size. So if you've got small hands, then yeah, this might be a more ergonomical hold grip for you. I quite like it that it's very flat as well. So if you put them on top of each other, yeah, the Parkside one is slightly taller. So let's open them up. Let's take the housing of both off. Have a look and see what's inside these brushless budget angle grinders. Ta-da! Now I have to do this with a screwdriver because I knackered my long Phillips head bit the other day, so I forgot to get another one. So I'll just speed this up. It'll make a difference to you. Now, as you can see, I had to take the Einhell version further apart, as in disassemble the head, to be able to get the clamshells, which is what they call these pieces of plastic, apart, because they are held together with these little clips, these metal clips. You see these more frequent on the sort of budget offerings of tools, which basically means they can get away with a thinner, less precise clamshell, and they just use these to hold a lot together, or they can get rid of fasteners, because every fastener and its fastening point needs to be engineered. So that's where you can sort of see the cost cutting bit. Now they aren't present in the Parkside version because they use extra screws up here, which they're not there in the Einhell version because they decided that a compact building style was more important, so they use these things instead to hold the end together. So that's where you sort of see the small differences. I mean, you can see on the clamshells the difference in size is pretty obvious, especially at the front end there. The motor is also considerably smaller in the Einhell unit compared to the Parkside model, as you can see there. But we'll go into that detail a little bit later on, so let's move these to the side for now and have a look at the actual clamshells to begin with. So this is basically the molding, the plastic bit that you hold. So if we look at the just trying to read it, PA6 with a 30% glass fiber reinforcement in the actual black plastic, which is very difficult to distinguish, and then the whole lot, literally everything from top to bottom, is all overmolded with what they call a TPE, which is like a rubberized plastic, which is the soft grip feature that you feel. So this whole thing is covered in it, which is great until it gets greasy and you use oils, and then it starts to sort of peel off and damage. So having some of it where you hold it is great, but having the whole tool covered in it makes it a little bit, because if you rub this on the table for a bit and there's a bit of dust on it, it instantly looks used. So, you know, that's something to consider if that's something that's relevant to you. The Einhell one, as you can see, the red plastic, if we look at it here, there we go, is also a PA6, says it there, with a 30% glass fiber reinforcement and a TPR overmolding. So this is a slightly different material. It feels much more sturdier, so this is much more harder, so it gives you less of that anti-vibration stuff, but it's more durable for temperatures, and it's less prone to getting damaged when you clean this thing up, because they know it's an angle grinder and dust is something that you create quite frequently with an angle grinder, so having the option to clean it afterwards, at least wipe it down with something, does give you that little bit of extra confidence. They done it sparsely, so they only done the overmolding bit where you actually hold the tool, so the grip at the top and the bottom where you sort of squeeze it together, and the rest is just plastic, which is sort of fine. Now the interesting bit that we do see down here is that they integrated this mesh on the Parkside, which is where these vents are, so that stops rubbish from getting in here because it's this, but the air can flow freely to cool it down. Now I do want to be a bit of a bastard, but yeah, as you can see, it's not very secure, so it's only held in place at the corners and in the middle there, and as you can see there already, it's not that very well installed, so especially on here it does lift up, and you can see the tip of the screwdriver appearing there. So the ID, great, the execution, not so much. So, you know, that's to that bit. Now if we look at the vents on the Einhell, which they're very little, but what they've done is it's not a straight through vent, it's vented at an angle, so you can sort of see through at this angle, so the airflow can go out that way, and then they sort of hope that because it's at the that the dust doesn't blow straight in it, sort of thing, so that sort of stops it. Yeah, so you can stick your screwdriver sort of in the gap, but it won't. Yeah, you can just about see it there. So that sort of is their idea of, yeah, very little airflow down the bottom there where the electronics are, which is the bit that you'd like to keep cool. Now I do believe that there was quite a lot of warranty claims for this particular model, firstly because of the switch, and also I did read in one of the comments that they said they did improve the airflow. So I think the later model, and I put a picture of it here, this all looks a bit different. So maybe you can sort of, I hold this here, the picture there, you can see the difference. So yeah, so let's put these two to the side. Now let's have a look on the inside. Now because I've taken the Einhell thus far apart, let's do the same with the Parkside. Yeah, this is screwed into the aluminium, this plastic body of the motor housing. So I think I have to remove the other half of the clam. So Parkside uses a mix of Phillips heads, as these are on the inside, and the little Torx T15s. Right, that took me a little bit of faff off camera because these screws are not the greatest. I stripped the head out of one of them. So yeah, as we can see with the Parkside one, there's a similar feature as well, and it's the same with this one. So the rubber bit is actually integrated as part of the cooling fan here. I think the controls, the basic layout is the same. Switch, which is on a little lever that operates the micro switch that's inside the device, which is there on the Parkside, and it's here on the Einhell. Now the button for the micro switch is on the side there, so this switch has therefore got this little L-shape bracket, and all you do is basically control it that way. And this switch out here is the one that actually locks in place. The microcontroller in here is basically just an on-off switch that defaults to off. But yeah, as soon as you have this little switch come out of the grab handle, the little peg there, it deactivates the grinder. That's the Parkside version, the Einhell one, very similar. As you can see, the microcontroller switch is at the top there, which is pretty much an identical microcontroller with a little switch there. But yeah, similar situation. The switch is on a little arm. It's got a little spring in it, so it defaults to off, obviously. And then you can see the way that it controls the switch is, yeah, it just pushes, it slides over that button basically of the microcontroller. So very identical. Then on the Parkside we see quite a lot of wires, 3 going into the motor, and then you can see the heatsink, quite a beefy heatsink. The battery terminal, which has 3 spades on here, which one will be for your thermal management. We got the plus and minus on the battery, and then the other ports are not identified on the outside, but I think there's one that's your temperature management, which is your T, your plus and your minus, correct. Now then the controller, which is screwed in place, as you can see, the basically the control board of the device that controls the current, the battery drain and all that jazz, because lithium ion cells, they need a bit of monitoring. And obviously it's a brushless motor, so the microcontroller needs to control the individual sides of the motor, because the permanent magnets on a brushless motor are on the rotor, and it basically turns the outside into either a positive or a negative magnet, if you like, which then quickly attracts and pulls away the permanent magnets that are on the rotor, which gives you that spinning motion, which gives you basically the opportunity to get rid of the brushes. But that obviously means these things need to switch quite quickly on and off to give you that feature of positive attraction and a negative attraction. Yeah, that's what all this jazz does, so we'll take it out in a bit. Having a look at the Einhell, obviously the first thing we see is that the motor is a lot smaller. Oops. The brushless motor. The nice thing with this is that the back end, it's aluminium, it's all plastic on here, so it feels nice and solid. The controller, as you can see here, is very open and exposed. There's a bit of epoxy on some of the bits, but yeah, a little bit of excessive epoxy here and there, which okay. And then on the Einhell, as we are used, if you watched any of the other Einhell videos, I put one up there if you want to watch one of the more popular ones. They only have a plus and a minus, so the battery management is completely done internally in here. So this thing has got its clever stuff going on standalone, which makes their battery slightly more expensive compared to some of the others, but you can make cheaper tools. So that's the trade-off there. So instead of the tool deciding it's getting too toasty in the battery itself decides it. It cuts the power either way, and that's the end of that basically. But yeah, you can actually see on the Einhell the microprocessor that controls all the different things going on for a brushless motor. And you can see the 6 MOSFETs that are on here. I'll see if I, oops, a bit of the epoxy's come off. If I can give you a close-up, in case one of you needs some spare MOSFETs, because they do tend to burn out when they get too hot. They're basically electronic switches that control the speed of the device and provide you with a slow startup, a slow ramp up to manage the current flow out of the battery basically a little bit. But yeah, 6 of them on a well, they're insulated with a little rubber sheet for the current, and then there's an aluminium, quite a thick aluminium sheet, so nothing like this. It's just this one aluminium block which is sort of soaked from both sides, so this thing does get quite hot a lot quicker, whereas there's better airflow through here, so this thing can run probably longer before it overheats than this one does. But yeah, very simple. So let's remove the clam. So we have the internals basically laying on the table in front of us, and then we'll have a look at this side of the occasion, and then we'll have a look at the mechanics a little bit later. And then yeah, your clamshell, a mirror image of the other side. Very straightforward, simple. The branding is a sticker with Einhell on their new current sort of lineup of tools. It used to be embedded in the tool, but they got rid of it to be more premium or something, I guess. Right, so now we need to get a screwdriver. Yeah, and this is the other side of the Parkside one. The little logo, as you can see, is sort of welded in place there. So this is a separate piece of plastic that they just stick on here, glue it, plastic weld it in place. That's what those blobs are for. And then you got that mesh thing again. It's a little bit better on here, but I bet you if I poke a screwdriver in there, yeah, it's just as flimsy. So it's not really, it's more of a decoration than anything else, really. I don't know if it keeps a lot of, because it's quite a big opening, so you could get stuff in there quite easily, I think. And all these other vents, they're just for show. They don't actually go anywhere. They're just a feature. The Parkside tools are very featureful. There's lots of things going out on the outside. They're very much engineered by an industrial designer, not necessarily an engineer. The clams do fit together fairly nicely. A little bit of sharp edges here and there, but you know, for a budget offering like that, you can see that it's slightly warped, so yeah, there's a little bit of play there. Yeah, and this is a typical one. So if you have very thin clams, they use these little cheetah pins to basically hook into the opposite part so that the alignment goes a little bit better. There you go. But yeah, this one actually sort of clips in place, so the shut lines on this are a little bit nicer, but yeah, and there's not really that many sharp edges. They do have like that bit. Yeah, there's a little bit down here, but that's where it goes onto the aluminium, but you won't be able to stick your fingers in there. All the bits that you are capable of touching with your fingers, they are actually pretty nice. And yeah, this thing does fit together. The tiniest of gap there, but other than that, yeah, so I think in terms of the tool making, a little plus for Einhell there. We've already sort of spoken about the switches. Yeah, just looking at the markings, they're just on there. This is actually a PA6 as well with a 30% glass fiber reinforcement, so they do use the proper tool grade plastic on the bits you touch, which is nice. So that's the switch on there. They even got a marking on here, so this again is all, so as you can see there as well, PA6 with a 30% glass fiber reinforcement in there. And the same goes for the yeah, the little bar, if you like, this piece. It also has it on there. So that's this is all proper stuff, so that's good. No cost cutting going on there. It does feel nice and, well, as stiff as it can feel, but it's only a push-pull situation sort of thing. So yeah, the back half is very sturdy, and there's obviously a little bit of flex in that bit there. This white plastic is not labelled up at all, so we don't know what it is. It feels like a bit of nylon, which obviously is very flimsy. A different way of installing them. So this relies pretty much solely on being engaged into the drive up there and then being encased in the housing. This one is screwed into the housing. So it uses, but it's completely supported in plastic bracketry, whereas the back of this one is all nicely sort of a cast and then machined aluminium. So from a rigidity point of view, this one is probably a little bit stiffer. And then we got the MLBL18, so this is an 18 volt brushless motor, 4830, so this is an off-the-shelf brushless motor unit. I think I've seen this particular one in an Einhell one before, but yeah, okay, fair enough. You know, they all buy their bits from suppliers. Let me interrupt myself for a moment here. I did mention at the beginning of this video that we're going to give something away to celebrate our 1,000 subscribers achievement, eh? Because I wanted you to watch the video to find out how you can win this thing. So I was thinking, let's give this away. I will send this. I won't send out the battery because that's just a pain in shipping lithium batteries. It has to be limited to continental Europe, unfortunately, because I'm not made out of money, and shipping internationally is just not worth it with the import duties and everything else. So mainland Europe, you can win this. Only been taken apart once by a careful previous owner. Throw in the box as well, so you get it with the box. All you have to do to win this, which is obviously the important bit of this, is be a subscriber to the channel. Give me a good tip for a future video, like a certain tool or, you know, specific thing that you want to see more of. I'll have something out of it, you'll have something out of it, and then we're both happy people, eh? I will give you, I think, 4 weeks from the upload date of the video, and then I'll post a video where we draw the winner of this enormous, no expenses spared prize of a Parkside 20 volt, which is actually an 18 volt angle grinder, brushless, without a battery, but with a case. Yay! The electronics are all encased in this little plastic tray, which is then completely epoxied in, so we can't see what's going on inside there at all. This is a piece of plastic, PA66-2. So yeah, no glass fiber in there, just a piece of plastic. And then the only bits that you do see is the heat sink, basically, and the connectors for the battery terminals, the micro switch, which is a double micro switch, so there's 2 of them. So basically it controls the on and off. It makes a connection there and it makes a connection there, so it switches both positive and neutral, I guess as an extra safety feature. So that's the Parkside motor unit. Then obviously the Einhell one, this is also a double micro switch, which looks very similar, but this one is actually branded, so I don't know if you can see it. Got a little schematics on it. So this is a Lobo, so L-O-B-O-O. I'll put it down the video bit down the bottom there. Yeah, little schematics of how it works. So yeah, this is a double one as well, and then you got the part numbers written on there. Yeah, the control board, a double layered, so one that has the MOSFETs and the connectors for the wiring, which are all soldered in. The connectors, the control board for the motor are also a plug, but the rest are all soldered in, and then the yeah, these are all soldered and then heat shrunk, so quite nicely done. And the heat shrink, yeah, these are coated wiring, so they actually use the proper wiring on the motor side, so we'll go in there as well. And here we've got the type number of the motor is a PW4830E, DC direct current 18 volts. So both units are 18 volt motors, as I said before. The 20 volt on the battery is just a marketing opportunity to make it sound more powerful. It's a bigger number than 18, so it must be better. I took the motors apart off camera. The Parkside one was actually pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of these 4 screws and then the fan assembly and the rotor with the permanent magnets, as you can see. You know, there's 4 of them. You can see them there. And they're just set into a steel core, secure installment if you like, so that the whole thing doesn't come flying apart. But yeah, they're definitely magnets, as you can see. So these are the permanent magnets, and then this is the out of the stator, if you like, the bit that doesn't move, which you can see the coils, nice thick copper wires, coiled up, switched in 3 pairs. So there's 6 coils in total. And the only one that I must say looks a little bit on the funky side is this one. If I put some light in it, you can see how that one is not so nicely, it's quite loose there. Which I guess that's where the budgetness comes in. Tiny little bearing at the end there, which is held into a plastic housing. So the bearing will get warm and then it starts, yeah. I don't know how long that will actually stay put in that housing doing lots of bearing, or if it starts to spin at the outer ring as well. And anyway, yeah, so a little bearing in there. It's steel, it's an encaged deep groove ball bearing, as far as the part numbers tell me. So metal encaged means there's a metal cage basically holding the balls together. So it's a sturdy old bearing, and then the bearing sits on this little shaft, which isn't pressed or anything, so yeah, I don't know how much of that shaft actually engaged the bearing. And then there is another bearing just under there, if I'm in the frame, which you can see spins that end of the motor, or supports, sorry, this end of the motor. A nicely directional cooling fan, as you can see, for maximum cooling opportunity. It blows out nicely. So yeah, that's the a good point there. If we're looking at the Einhell version, if I shine the light through there, you can see this is a straight fan, so sub-optimum for cooling, because an angle grinder only ever turns one way. So this means this is an off-the-shelf motor unit that they use in other applications, and they haven't tailored it to this one directional unit. So this might be a unit that they also use in a battery powered drill, which does come with a forwards, you know, a forwards and a backward switch. And this one, at least the fan assembly, they've tailored specifically for this purpose. Looking at the Einhell unit, again, the outside, the inner bit, and this was why it was a bit awkward because I couldn't get the screws out, because the fan assembly, you know, if you look at this one, it's got two screws holding all together. This one, there's these stupid plastic covers I couldn't get out. So yeah, this was a bit finicky to do, so I had to do it in stages. But again, there is the permanent magnets there, held in place in there. Again, laminated steel core to hold it all in place, because these things, yeah, they spin rapidly. I mean, if the head spins at 8.5/10,000 RPMs, these things spin at about 30,000. So yeah, you don't want those magnets dislodging themselves, so that's why they're held in place firmly there. And then you can see the core on the Einhell, so again 6, so it's you can see it on the control wires, so 3 pairs, and you can see the control board of the actual motor nicely integrated at the back there. Aluminium housing, and the bearing is actually attached onto the shaft here, and you can actually see on the outside that this thing was not fully engaged, and this bearing is also just a shielded bearing, because you can see the blue, that's just a seal, that's not actually a metal ring or anything. And then this little spring washer to sort of help it stay put. And then the little bronze bushing at the end there with the little holes in it, that's your balancing. So that's the motor balancing. So this thing, I need to pull the screws all the way back in there, which it's this plastic bit is quite close to the cooling fan, so the screws not being anywhere near. They got little spring washers in them, which pushes them into the fan, which makes them rub. But basically, there's also a bearing in there, which is similar to that one there, as far as I can see. But yeah, these are just little balancing holes to balance out this shaft, so it's running at little to no vibrations. I can't see any of this happening here, and if I spin this at speed, you can feel a little vibration, because this is just a little metal shaft that's, oh dear, it's not really held in place. Oops, it's not really held in place in that bearing at all at the end there. Alright, okay, so yeah, this is a nice assembly. I'm just a little bit worried what this spring washer on the end there, that's sort of like a tolerance gap filler thing. That's a little bit less sexy. The coils are nice and tight. The coils are actually slightly closer together in the Einhell version than the Parkside, so the gap in between them is actually less significant than on the Einhell one. Sorry, these are larger than the one on the Einhell one. So from a torque point of view, because the switching happens quicker and there's less of a gap, this is actually the more efficient motor than this one. Although this one spins faster, this one is more efficient, so you probably get longer battery life out of this one. Okay, so the mechanical side of things. So we got the Einhell at the top, Parkside down here. Now as you can see, the inner bit, so this is where the motor assembly goes, this is where your gear reduction happens, and this obviously is where your cutting disc goes. Very, very obviously similar construction on pretty much every angle grinder in the world. Yeah, as you can see, then they use a lot of grease in the Parkside one, but it's all down there and it's not on the actual gearing. The Einhell one runs with a lot less gear, so I guess they put a lot of grease in here as well to get some of the noise down. The grease they use in the Einhell is actually of a tool grade grease, so this is like a brown grey, so they use a lot of graphite in here, which helps with lubrication, whereas this, I mean, I used it with my grey fingers, but this is just a transparent sort of grease, sort of a Vaseline looking substance. Yeah, I don't know, that's not something I like to see a lot in sort of a gearbox application, which assembly wise for the bearing, very similar. Same with the Einhell one. Uses just a simple bushing here where the main shaft, where all your load works on, they use a simple bushing at the end there. There is a bearing obviously in the housing here, but on the other side is just a bushing, which it's got some caked on grease in there, which gone so hot that it's sort of dried out. It is obviously graphite grease, so it's got some lubrication features even when it's drier, but yeah, it's just a bushing. If we look at the Parkside one, you can see it actually has a needle bearing in there, which is actually something that's a bit nicer. So yeah, it is actually a bearing, so it is actually properly supported in there, which is nice. Now the only thing I want to point out, this solution is a little bit, yeah, half-hearted sort of thing. A big washer that grabs onto the edge of the bearing to hold it in place, so the bearing is only really supported on 2 contact points to held in place. So this solution with a bespoke shim is much better, bigger contact surface. The other thing is these washers are very thin. So in there, bronze bushing. So the end of the shaft here is supported by bronze bushing. This is a nice encaged bearing. I quite like the look of that. So that's on the Parkside unit. Then we'll have a look at the Einhell one, and this is a shim. It's fairly thin, but quite a stiff assembly there. And then this should be, oh wow, okay, that's pressed in there, and then it just shoots out. So again, a bushing at the end. Now you can already see the shaft difference there. Einhell, Parkside. That is very thin. Nice big beefy bearing here as well, which I think the bearings, the Einhell one is actually a larger diameter bearing, so they rely on this main bearing to support most of it, and the bushing is just as a little guide, but it actually has a bearing in there as well, so it's supported by a bearing in there, but they're not there, which is sort of a bit odd. The aluminium housing as such is like a nice bit of machining, well, grinding I should say, going on here. Nice bit of machining in here. Really like the look of that. This is a bit rougher. This is very smooth, very nice. Same in the inside there, as is that. This is also a little bit on the rougher side, but that's just a mating surface to stop the grease from getting out, sort of thing. Whereas the precision surfaces are actually done really nicely. On here, you can hear it, it's very rough, so the machining in here is done to a different standard. You can also see the holes, so the cooling on the Parkside unit is primarily done through the head, not so much through the body. The Einhell one, the cooling is done on this side, so on the motor side. Material wise, wall thicknesses very similar. Obviously the head on the Parkside is slightly bigger because it's a slightly bulkier design. So both units have got a nice hardened gear set, which you sort of expect for an angle grinder, because there's quite a lot of force has been worked on these gear sets, these gear reductions, and they make this shape to basically increase the contact between the gearing, so maximum contact surface for better torque transmissions. Otherwise, you know, you'll rip the teeth clean off one of these two. Okay, to summarize, the Parkside Brushless 20-volt angle grinder and the Einhell 18-volt power exchange angle grinder. So which one's better than the other? Now I think going off, if you've been watching the video so far, it isn't a clear day and night sort of victory as such. There's some good bits about one and about the other. So I thought the easiest thing to do here is to provide you with a bit of an overview, as this is the first time that we're doing a side-by-side comparison of the components. So I'll blend in an overview here where we go through the individual points as such of, I think, the things that you should consider when you want to buy one of these, and especially if you are considering one or the other at the minute. Obviously, you're buying yourself into a system. It's an ecosystem where you have a battery that is obviously slightly different, although they might look very similar, but the shape and the size of the opening, you know, you can't fit one or the other. They physically don't fit, so you know, you can't actually, they don't even slide into the, you know, they make the shapes and sizes different so that they're not compatible between each other. So if you buy the tool, you have to buy the brand's battery. So if you buy the Einhell, you have to buy their power exchange batteries with it. Same goes for the Parkside. So that in consideration, and that brings us to the first point on the list, is obviously the platform. So if you are getting into this, it's going to be your first tool, then Einhell has by far the bigger offering out of the two. In the recent promo PR blur that they released, I think they're now up to almost 250 or 250 plus tools, versus as much as I can find on the Parkside side of things. I think all in all, with their performance series and the standard series, which do take the same battery, you're looking at, I think, 40 tools, give or take. So that's obviously almost like 5 times as much on the Einhell front. So I think that win goes to Einhell. Then let's have a look at the features and functions. So I think pros and cons on both sides. Again, I think the good bits about the Parkside is the cover arrangement. I like it with the quick and easy sort of clipping in place, twist and turn, and the extra cover that comes with it that you can add or remove. by sort of sliding it on. So you can have a grinding cover or a cutting cover to obviously stop sparks from going everywhere, although there are little gaps there, so I don't know how well that works with sparks, but it'd probably be a lot better than just that. So definitely a plus from my side. The other thing that's good is obviously looking at the handles. I like the slightly beefier feel of the Parkside. What looks like with an integrated anti-vibration system, the way that they made this. So this will be, I think, if you use it a lot for cutting, you know, longer durations of time, then this is definitely the better handle out of the two. So that, as well as obviously the option of fitting it on this side, but also on the top. So if you're doing like a lot of grinding sort of facing down and you need a bit of that downward pressure, then that's definitely a positive there, compared to the Einhell one where you can obviously fit it on this side or on that side. There is no opportunity on the top there. So that's that bit, I think. So feature wise, there isn't a whole lot else to these two devices. They're both very analog in terms of there's an on-off button, there's no variable speed control, there's no Bluetooth connectivity rubbish, let me call it that way. It's all this electronic stuff. All it does is just cause trouble. So, you know, if you just want a simple a grinder, you turn it on and it cuts, and you turn it off and it stops, sort of thing, great. The thing I do have to say, that obviously the one that I took apart here isn't the latest greatest model, so the switch is upgraded since 2018 when this sort of came available first. The other thing that's now included is a quick lock ring, similar to the Parkside one. It's just a knurled finish, so you don't have this sort of added flappy thingy. So they're going to be identical from a quick release feature point of view. The Parkside does come with the wrench. This one has the wrench included in the handle as well. But if you buy the one with the quick release ring, then it no longer needs it, so it doesn't come with it. So from a feature point of view there, I think we covered all aspects. So I think that win goes to the Parkside. Then looking at so we're looking at build quality here. So we're comparing, for instance, the motor units, the electronics. So I think the motor unit on the Einhell, like this one, it's all like plastic housing sandwiched together. The rotor is sort of held into a plastic housing which got a bit of play on the bearing front. So I don't know how long that's going to last before the metal housing, the plastic housing is going to wear out, because it gets warm and the bearing is just floating loosely in there. So this one versus an aluminium one, where the steel bearing sits in, sort of thing, this all feels a little bit more robust. I mean, yes, there is a plastic support on the other side, but yeah, this assembly just feels that much more robust. So I think the motor design is definitely the one from Einhell has the upper hand there. It's also like the quality of the quality of the coils here, like how loosely you want this as tight as possible for the maximum magnetic field forces to be generated there. So this is not that. So yeah, definitely the win there for Einhell. Electronic wise, obviously it's pros and cons when it's epoxied into this sort of, well, it's a plastic board with a massive heat sink on it, so no dust and dirt and water can get into the electronics. But if something goes wrong, you have to replace the whole lot. So that'll be one of the most, well, this is going to be by far the most costliest part of the tool. These motors, they don't cost all that much, but plus obviously the MOSFETs in here that control the brushless motor unit, they generate a lot of heat because they're encapsulated, and the only bit that can, you know, get rid of the heat is this heat sink, which, yes, it's beefy and all, but the MOSFETs are in there, so the core heat is sort of encapsulated. So pros and cons, as I said. So this board is all exposed, so this is obviously the fragile bit. If dust gets in here, can cause troubles, but you can get to the important bits, which is what mostly goes wrong with these MOSFETs. So the 6 of them, you unscrew the pair of them, you undo the solder, and you can put a new one on the board and off you go again, sort of thing. The switch is identical on both the even the same brand, same part number almost, I believe. So no difference there. The switch material, so the internal materials, like this is very flimsy, sort of nylon, not very sort of, yeah, durable. This will, when it gets hot and everything, this will be very flimsy. This is proper tool grade plastic, so this is stiff. This doesn't really bend all that much. You can bend it by forcing it, but yeah, this is definitely up to the standards. They use materials as well in the housing. The housing itself is a lot nicer finished in terms of the quality of the fitment. They use a TPR overmolding, so that the black stuff that you can see is actually a slightly more durable material compared to the TPE when it comes to sort of lifetime durability. TPE is slightly softer, so it helps a little bit with vibrations, but in an application like an angle grinder, you probably want to opt for the TPR sort of feature. So considering that, the gearbox, the gear reduction sort of side of things, there's some peculiar things going on both. There's no bearing on the Einhell in the center there, but then there isn't one there on the Parkside, and there is one there for the Einhell. So they both do these weird little things there where they skip on a bearing, which I don't know why. So I think all in all, to summarize, the win there goes to Einhell. Serviceability, I think I already touched upon it briefly, but this is a lot easier to service for a bloke like me than this, because you can't really fault find anything on this board. You're just gonna get rid of the wires, put a new board on it, and you hope that that's the, that's gonna fix it, sort of thing. Whereas with this, you can actually check some things, measure some things, and pretty straightforward with a few MOSFETs that cost a couple of euros each. You can get this thing going again. So again, I think the serviceability win goes to the Einhell instead of the Parkside. Then obviously spare parts. So Einhell has a pretty good, at least on mainland Europe. I've read a review or feedback on one of the videos that in the UK it's apparently now Brexit has happened a little bit more awkward to get parts in, so you have to pay extra import duties and stuff because they all come from Germany. Hey ho, who would thought, hey? So yeah, that'll probably make it more complicated, but for the rest of Europe, it's as easy as go on the Einhell website, order the bits that you need. If they're in stock, then you have them within a week, 2 weeks tops, depending on where you live in Europe. So that's pretty easy going. They've got nice exploded views on the website, so you could take it to bits yourself, put it back together, get going again. Top point. If it's out the warranty, if it's within the warranty, you just bring it back to where you bought it and they swap it out for you. Pretty straightforward in most cases there, unless they can see that you've driven over it with your car or you chopped it in half by accident or whatever. Not, then obviously it could be a case of abuse, but in normal cases. I looked on Parkside's websites as much as they are. This particular tool is supplied or made by OWM, which I'll put the website up here. That's literally their website. There's nothing on it. If I look for any of the numbers on here or the number on the box, I can't find anything. So trying to spare parts for this is going to be absolutely awkward. Some suppliers that make the Parkside tools on behalf of Lidl do have some spare parts available. I think Sheppach, who make all their saws and woodworking tools, they're actually halfway decent because they have their own lineup of tools and they're pretty much all the same, just painted in a different color and slightly different design on some bits because it needs to obviously look like a Parkside tool. So it's slightly different here or there. Others, like this one, is supplied by Grizzly Tools. So all of these bits, they come from different suppliers. So spare parts is going to be an absolute nightmare. So that win definitely goes to Einhell as well. Warranty-wise, obviously 5 years on this. 3 years on this if you register it within 30 days. 2 years on batteries. 3 years on batteries. So if you look at the numbers, black and white, then yeah, the Parkside would win. The only thing that I'm a little bit on the fence about is the fact that obviously when this goes kaput, you can't just go to Lidl and expect them to give you a replacement because, well, the local Lidl might not have these things on the back of the shelf, and it might be 3 years from now when this thing goes kaput in its 5-year warranty span. This is model C3. They started off at C1, so by that point they must be at C12 at the rate they're changing through these because they swap suppliers or whatever. You end up just, what, you get your money back, or you, when you're lucky, you get a replacement tool. But how's it going to work? You know, if I go to these guys and say it's broken under warranty, they send me a new tool and that's it. You can carry on with what you were doing with it. With this, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below how that works. So, yes, on paper I'll give it to Parkside this round, but practically I don't know what that 5-year means. So I think the total win is marginally going to the Einhell on this front. So there you have it. If you want to look at the numbers statistically and think which one is better, then that one. But there's pros and cons, economics, you know, you want to have to hold it, you want to have to use it to see which one works best with you. And then obviously if you already got these, then you would be silly to buy something different and have two systems. The same goes for Einhell, obviously. If you're already in the Einhell, then it would be silly to go and buy something else. If you are looking for a budget angle grinder in the cordless variety, 18 volts, and you're on a bit of a budget, then I think this is not a bad choice. Let me know what you think in the comments below. For now, thank you very much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you like this sort of content. So I'm trying out some different things here, so let me know, yay, nay. There's an interesting video for you right there, as well as the subscribe button there if you haven't already, which I know most of you aren't. So consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos on the channel. Yeah, for the rest, stay safe, have fun, and be nice. And then we'll see you in one of my next videos. Goodbye.